Divine, all blessed, peace and love, joy and prosperity, revelation and manifestation. You are now viewing and sitting live with the Divine Prince, Pan-African spiritualist, practitioner, author, and advisor, Elagun Oloye Okur, sharing with you in all things spiritual, mystical, metaphysical, cosmic, evolutionary, revolutionary, universal, healing, and holistic from a Pan-African Hoodoo world spiritualist perspective, understanding that all is truly and indeed a blessing if you can just see beyond the veils, for it is just an illusion and a test and one of the greatest divine mysteries of this life cycle. This is my constant prayer, mantra, affirmation, reverberation, reiteration, and it is my ever-living reality. It is crucial to the very foundation of my understanding, the way that I see the world, view the world, approach the world, come at the world, make sense of the world. For indeed, all is truly and indeed a blessing if we can see beyond the veils. I am coming to you now live, and I will do so more frequently and more regularly moving forward into the future. I'm seriously considering giving up the blog talk radio platform. It is just no longer fulfilling my needs. It is no longer consistent and reliable for me to broadcast and be present with you each and every day at noon. So my goal is to move that audience here to from Blog Talk Radio to YouTube Live and do my revolutionary Hoodoo New Orleans Voodoo secrets and recipes here, like on air, on camera, on YouTube every weekday at high noon U.S. Central Standard Time. So I'm open to your comments, your questions, your requests, your suggestions about this idea. Some of you were and also were supportive about the idea of me doing live readings here in this platform. I welcome each and every one of you. Thank you so much for being present. I do wear eyeglasses, so I cannot see your detailed comments in the chat right now unless I put my eyeglasses back on. But I welcome each and every one of you. This is a great way to start this broadcast. I do plan to be here every day during the week, Monday through Friday at high noon, to answer your questions, take your suggestions, respond to your comments, and of course, talk about and teach revolutionary Hoodoo, New Orleans Voodoo secrets and recipes. People ask, what is that? What does that mean? What is the root of that title? And when we look at, indeed, not only Voodoo, but revolution, those two things go hand to hand in the New World. We must go back to the Middle Passage. We must go back to the time of enslavement in order to fully grasp and understand the modern manifestation of not only Voodoo, but West African, traditional African religious systems and their manifestation now in our present day and time. We must go back to the Middle Passage. We must go back to the ancestors. We must go back to enslavement. For it was in the belly of those ships that our ancestors maintained their ability to count. And I say that if you can count in Fan, in Akan, in Iwe, in Efe, in Yoruba, in Igbo, then you can count under duress in English, Spanish, French, and Portuguese. And if you can remember how to count, then indeed you can remember your sacred rhythms. You can remember the sacred count, the sacred days, the algorithm that is at the root of all traditional African systems Santeria, Lakomi, Palo, Voodoo, Obia, Hoodoo. They all have their root, conjure, root working. They all have their root, their beginnings in West African-based traditional systems. So the ability to count is not something that is exclusive to Cuba. It's not something that's exclusive to Brazil. It's not exclusive to any other region of the world, except where the lineage of the Middle Passage still exists. And that exists right here in the blood, right here in your DNA. And some of you are already with me on our journey in understanding and exploring DNA, particularly with all the new modern available ways of accessing that information. I'm not going to promote any one particular brand or option for you accessing your DNA. None of them are paying me or offering me anything to promote them. However, we know that we've had a great deal of influence on our community and people of color now seeking that as an option to bring spirituality and divination, which is the traditional way that we look at ancestral worship and honor in these ATR traditions. But now we also have this modern technology that allows us to bring those two things together in a new, powerful, and exciting way. I've found first and second cousins just in the last week using some of these resources. I've also been able to clearly define in a more unique and interesting way who I am as a practitioner of voodoo, who I am as the king and leader of New Orleans voodoo, who I am as the representative of bringing back this revival of true commitment and vocation to what belongs to us. This is not a trend. This is not something that's just in fashion right now. It looks good. I would like to believe that I have helped to make voodoo look good in a modern context to many people who were in hiding about the voodoo, who were fearful about the voodoo, who were miseducated about the voodoo. But now, along with this technology, it's popular now to look spiritual, to look conscious. I remember Jill Scott, when she did her live concert after her record-breaking first album. I can't remember the name right now. It's the album that has Let's Take the Long Walk on it, Jill Scott. And then after that, the summer, I believe, after the release of that, she did this live concert and she talked about how we associate natural hair with consciousness. And I was able to sit in that from my own experience. Many of you know that I once had very long dreadlocks, thick, beautiful dreadlocks. And there came a time when I had to cut them. It was time, it was my season to cut them. I lost followers for cutting my dreads. I lost so-called friends for cutting my dreadlocks. And I cut my dreadlocks to act in Underground for TV, Roots for TV, The Green Book, which is now still showing in theaters. And so my position was, as India Ari gifted us, I am not my hair. The voodoo is not my hair. The voodoo was not in my hair. The voodoo is me. So now, in the course of popular trending, it's the beard. And it's fashionable now to wear the beard. And many of you love and appreciate the beard. And I like your comments. And I appreciate your comments. But it's not a look. It's an extension of who I am. So we must move beyond this idea that consciousness, spirit, is somehow a look. It's how many candles are in your shot. It's how many crystals you can produce for your selfie. It's the incense smoke, you know, in the air. And consciousness is so much more about what's going on in here and in here and in here than it is anything that I could wear or show up for on the outside. So if you love me because I had dreads, I appreciate that, but I'm more than my dreadlocks. If you love me now because I'm wearing a beard, I appreciate that, but I'm so much more than my beard. And if the next movie role, TV role requires it, I will be clean shaven. I can grow a beard in a week. So please don't associate me with what I look like, what you like about my appearance, what you like about my style. Please hear what I'm saying, what I'm offering, what I'm gifting to you from my heart, from my spirit. Voodoo is about revolution, revolution, liberty, revolution, freedom, the idea of freedom for the African American here under enslavement had its roots in the Bois Cayman, had its roots in the voodoo, had its roots in that ancestral worship. So I'm here to reinforce revolution, to reinforce freedom, to reinforce escape from bondage. Don't bond me to my hair. Don't imprison me to what I look like, to what I might be showing up that might be fashionable for you today. Bond with me, build with me, join with me because you seek revolution, because you seek freedom, and particularly the African American, particularly the person of color, particularly the person that has this voodoo running in your veins, in your DNA. I posted my DNA results, both Ancestry.com and 23andMe, to both my Instagram and my Facebook. And many of you are supportive of that, appreciated that. Many of you are getting your tests done because of that. Don't let it be the end all, the end and the beginning of your demonstration of acknowledging your ancestors and walking in that consciousness. We like to say we respect the ancestors. We like to say we stand on the shoulder of our ancestors. But how much does that show up in each and every moment of your existence, of your being? How much does that show up in your demonstration of your God self, your God consciousness, each and every day of your walk? Let it be the beginning of building a relationship. I like to say that these dating sites, and this newest one, this farmers.com, is really hilarious to me. Those commercials crack me up. I'm still having a hard time believing that they're serious, but I guess they are. But the need for these applications is really because we lack relationship building skills today. Somewhere with the technology and in the 90s, I believe, we lost our ability to say, hello, how are you? My name is the DivinePrince. My name is Emmecca. I was born in Chicago. I grew up in Washington, D.C., Virginia area. I have been in New Orleans since 1996. We have lost our ability to do that, to say that openly, honestly. I'm amazed at how creative people are at trying to coerce me, trick me into free services. But they don't know how to just say, hey, how are you? Let's be friends. Let me get to know you. Let me understand who you are. They don't see my humanity. They want access to the voodoo. They want access to results. They want access to power. but they somehow negate the humanity of who I am, the vessel who's presenting that. They're not concerned about if I'm hungry, if I'm cold, if I'm housed, if I'm happy, if I'm empowered, if I'm whole. And these are the things that you need your practitioner, your healer to be operating in, if you're truly indeed asking them to come into your energy. I don't want you guys to think I'm ignoring chat. There's a lot going on in chat that I can't see without putting on these glasses. I appreciate all of you, Queen Bonita, Kay, Amina, Ogun Ogun, Billy. I appreciate each and every one of you, Goddess, Divine Empress, so much for being here, for supporting the idea of me doing this and doing it in this venue. Because of all of your support, I most certainly will be here every weekday at high noon to do my show. I'm going to back away from the radio platform, and I'm going to be present in this space where you can not only hear my voice, but you can see my face, you can feel my energy, and we can connect here in a more organic way, I believe. I am going to have to learn how to navigate seeing you looking into the camera from my acting performance side of my brain versus the spiritual part who wants to engage and answer your questions and do those both at the same time. I would like to, at some point, respond to your questions or comments, but I need to be able to see them without being rude on camera and then give a response to it. But right now, I'm basically seeing greetings, people who are glad to be here. My sister, Wapani Savage, thank you so much for being here, for supporting. I do see your question, and I'm glad you asked. My sister, Wapani, my blood sister, we share a mother and a father, is also a successful writer and author. Wapani, W-A-P-A-N-I, Savage, S-A-V-A-G-E. Please do support her. Her books are available on Amazon. She's also on social media, Facebook. So please do support her. She and I, of course, share a story, share a history, share a foundation. And so often when we speak among ourselves, we're coming from that place. Her question in chat is, what would revolution look like today? And I think that's very important. Some of us, not all of us, but some of us see racism, sexism, the civil rights movement, slavery as all something that exists in the past, something that is so far behind us that it's not relevant to them today. But for many of us, we are existing in pain, with trauma, with PTSD, post-traumatic slave disorder, as well as PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, from many of the symptoms and the generational curses and the still present manifestations of being enslaved in white supremacy in this system, and how that then shows up today. So when we talk about our government, when we talk about the breakdown in our families, when we talk about people being lost in terms of self-identity, then we, and particularly people of color, have to look at these things that have historically shown up in us and with us. So today, revolution is maybe more not just about where we sit on the bus or having access to housing or certain businesses or certain positions in terms of employment. And many of you still are challenged with that. Many of you are still facing segregation and ostracization because you might have a record, or because you might not have all the best education, or because you might have some background in your family that you're still seeking to overcome. We're still challenged by the police. Black men and many Black women still don't feel safe to interact with the police, to walk the streets. So revolution still is on the table. The need for self-revolution, but also communal revolution. I think, Wapani, in terms of modern time, people are more focused on personal growth, evolution, revolution. We live in a society that's about me, myself, and I. We live in a day that's about doing for me, getting mine. And so we see that show up in spirituality and religion, where people are often seeking for something that they need. Often a crisis. My love and relationships is in crisis. My finances is in crisis. My relationship with my family might be in crisis. And so they seek magic, voodoo, as sort of a breakthrough from that bondage. But it's so much deeper than that. When we think about the Bois Cayman, for instance, the voodoo ceremony that took place in Haiti that led to the uprising, this didn't happen in one event. This didn't happen in one sitting. This didn't happen because they had just this one powerful voodoo party, and then everyone decided to get on board. This took some time, some conditioning, some planning, some getting people's minds, bodies, spirits ready for revolution. It was more than the idea that we could die if we do this. Massa might kill us all if we do this. Where are we going to flee to if we do this? The desire for freedom was greater than their fear and their anxiety of the oppression that they were already faced with. And so at that individual level that I talked about, modern times, my healing, my growth, my peace, my prosperity, there's little understanding of village consciousness. And when we look at these practices from an indigenous perspective, we're talking about people who exist in a village, who exist in a family, who exist in a support system that we don't have today. We're cut off from nature today. We're cut off from our neighbors in many cases today. We're cut off from our family. Some of us got family in social media that we don't interact with, that don't acknowledge us, that don't reach out to us. So that feeling, that idea of being free, of liberation from men, the oppression of men, sexual abuses, Me Too today that's prominent. We have the whole R. Kelly situation that's prominent. We still got Cosby Show airing on TV while they're still talking about bringing down R. Kelly. So the whole notion of what revolution is, what liberation is shifting. We're now faced with a new idea about sexual identity. When we look at indigenous cultures, India, for instance, parts of Africa, for instance, they have 5 sexes in their culture, not just male or female, man or woman. And let's be clear, binary gender roles were created from colonists, came out of colonialism and the colonizing of the world, which included slavery, required this need for a role-based, job-based, men do this, women do that, Your job is to birth babies and be in the kitchen. Your job is to pick cotton and plant fields and beat iron and do man stuff. So this whole idea of binary gender roles is new and it's colonial. When we go back to indigenous culture, the Black woman was God. When we go back to indigenous culture, the woman ran the house. When we go back to indigenous culture, the woman was the head, not the man. So, Wapani, the whole idea of revolution, liberation, freedom, self destiny, self choice is shifting, is in transition. And many are looking at it from a me first place, from how I do me first, how I heal me first. And I do agree and accept the idea that if I'm not healed, if I'm not whole, I have nothing to give you. I can only give you what I can give myself. I can only demonstrate with you what I can demonstrate in and for myself. And as a quick sidebar, the whole trending of spirituality, everybody's a root worker now. Everybody's a conjurer now. Everybody's claiming voodoo now. I have a guy reach out to me claiming voodoo, claims to have an understanding of voodoo, claims to be an expert in voodoo, but he wants to initiate with me. But you're an expert in voodoo. You already got a YouTube up, which, by the way, has no voodoo on it whatsoever. Candles, water, crystals, tarot cards, but ain't no voodoo there. But everybody today is sort of claiming that. So the idea of sitting in our truth, knowing our truth, being clear about our truth, it is important and is imperative to the idea of I've got to heal me first. I got to get true about what I need freedom from first. Some of you need liberation in your marriage, in your home, in your house, in your life, in your career, in your social, in your peer groups. So that notion of revolution keeps changing, keeps shifting. It's not always about throwing a Molotov cocktail. It's not always about the picket line, the protest line. It's not always about the march. It's about how we show up each and every day in the demonstration of revolution, freeing ourselves and each other. Revolution means freeing ourselves and each other from an oppressive state. Revolution means creating an environment of liberty and liberation for all people, not just some people. I have a problem with the idea that Black consciousness only exists in a binary gender form, and somehow the other sexes have no contribution to liberation. Indeed, we are on the front lines. We are on the front lines and always have been. So this notion of revolution first begins with me, beloved. When I feel free, when I feel loved, when I feel accepted, when I feel my rights are being honored and acknowledged, when I feel I have access to what all people should have access to, then will I feel I have accomplished revolution. And I seek that revolution for not just myself, but for all people. I honor and acknowledge you. I don't have to always agree with you. I acknowledge and honor my people, all people, and I honor and acknowledge those people who honor and acknowledge me. It's hard to act in revolution in a modern context for people or a person who might not seek that, need that, want that, understand that, identify with that. And that doesn't mean that we give up on who we are, but it does mean that our demonstration has to be without flaw, has to be without question. It means we have to be really clear about what revolution is. First for ourselves, for our family, for our community, for our village, and then operating that at a much wider scale. I'm often amazed at people who claim spirituality or consciousness and how negative they are with other people in social media. The true essence of who they are shows up in the read, in the shady comment, um, in wanting to get the facts straight, so to speak. Um, but the idea that somehow what we do when we're not being watched, what we do when we're not on camera, what we do when we think people are not paying attention, somehow that for some people doesn't show up as a part of their truth. Um, I don't have to know you. I don't have to know you a long time. You don't have to know me. You don't have to know me a long time. But every bit of who I show up as every day for you in the real world, but also here on the internet, is a look, is a window into the truth about who I am. Um, my question is, are you just seeing what you want to see? Or are you seeing the truth of who I am? Are you seeing that I no longer have dreads? Uh, are you seeing that I now have a beard? But are you truly seeing, digesting, absorbing, learning the voodoo, which is really why I'm here? That's at the root of why I'm here. I appreciate my UK friends and visitors. I'm actually on TV in the UK right now, Breaking Dad with Barney Walsh and Brentley, I believe it's Brentley or Bentley Walsh, the father and son team from the UK. I certainly appreciate that opportunity. It airs, I believe, every Wednesday night in the UK. I also will be in Brazil in the next coming months. We are unifying. What we're doing is we are retracing the Middle Passage. The legendary Horn brothers of Georgia, Tyson Allen Horn and the Horn brothers, they were introduced a few decades ago on Oprah Winfrey Show. They are legendary film producers, are working with us to create this project where we will retrace the Middle Passage, but in reverse. So what that means is my voodoo house here in New Orleans is developing a relationship with a voodoo house in Brazil. They will come here for Mardi Gras. I will go there for Carnival. That will be documented, filmed. Of course, I will share that journey with you. And then we're going to go back to the motherland, to Togo, Benin, in that region, and sort of retrace the Middle Passage backwards. Of course, with a specific interest in voodoo, how voodoo shows up in Brazil, how voodoo shows up in New Orleans, and ultimately in the Black American experience, and then unifying that Marasa Twa with West Africa, and acknowledging that path, that history. I also believe it'll be powerful and empowering for the African American who's often been placed in a position that somehow we are less authentic, less connected to the source than is those cousins of ours who are south of the border. You have to go to Cuba to get it authentic, they say. You got to go to Haiti to get it authentic, they say. You got to go to Brazil to get it authentic, they say. As if somehow we lost our ability to count, as somehow we lost our connection to these ancestors by way of enslavement here in America. And indeed, we know that's not the case at all. Our sciences, our practice, our wisdom has been masked behind many other things. First, for our survival. Lynching, Jim Crow, enslavement. We could have died for a gathering, for drumming, for chanting something other than the Bible. There was a time we could not chant or discuss the Bible. So the idea that somehow the voodoo took root everywhere our ancestors touched ground, except here, is just ridiculous. And the notion that we need an accent or we need a tropical across the water experience to connect with these traditions. I believe I have been at the forefront of fostering the reality, the truth that we got it. It's right here. It just needs to be developed. We must begin to allow ourselves to accept mentoring, to accept elders and eldership, to accept teaching, to accept that there is a system to be acknowledged, that there is a protocol to be acknowledged, that there is something to learn within this truth. Remember, I said I was contacted by someone who's already representing and perpetrating voodoo online because they indeed understand that there's a truth there to be gained. I don't accept or respect the manner in which he's going about trying to access it. Come real with the Divine Prince. Be truthful with the Divine Prince. Don't try to hide and be deceptive with the Divine Prince. I knew from his first email who he was. He's got something like 30,000 followers on YouTube, 26,000 followers on Instagram. And you say you represent voodoo, but you need me to initiate you now into voodoo after you've already established your audience. Many of you have been with me since Hurricane Katrina. Many of you have been with me since 2005. I've been standing on this platform with or without a following. I've been standing on this platform with or without an audience. I've been standing on this platform with or without support. I'm grateful for your support, but it's not why I'm here. I'm not here to get rich, get great numbers. That's not why I'm here. My job is acting. My job is a performer. That's how I pay my bills. But voodoo is real. Voodoo is authentic. It's not a commercial enterprise. It's not a Hollywood thing, though we use it in Hollywood imagery and imagination and creativity. The revolution of Black people, enslaved people, is real. And so any appropriation of that, any idea that I can just jump on that because it looks good on Instagram, because I can get people to pay me for a reading. And many of your readers that you are seeking in this format have no track record. I have a track record. I have the first documented, authentic voodoo ceremony in Louisiana ever. We know about Marie Laveau from books, from documents. We are grateful for Ina here in New Orleans who came here and did the hard work to validate who Marie Laveau is and was on paper. But because of technology, because of racism, because of white supremacy, there's no footprint of voodoo the way we would like to find it in Cuba or Haiti. And when you know what to look for, you can find a footprint in the archaeology, in the archives, in the documents, and what has been said and written. But I'm the first to have documented at the university level Real, authentic voodoo practice here in New Orleans. And so my goal is voodoo, the empowerment of the people through voodoo, the manifestation of revolution as it was first demonstrated at Bois Cayman in Haiti, here in modern times. As my sister Wapani asked, how do we manifest revolution in modern times? What does that look like in modern times? It looks like a person who not only has a name, is walking in that name, is legalized that name. Many of you are operating under usernames. DivinePrince is not a username. DivinePrince, Ross, Tychicus, Neferkari, and Emmecca is not a username. It's my government name. It's who I am 24 hours a day. Revolution in modern times shows up as I'm not a internet psychic reader. I'm a voodoo priest authentically 24 hours a day. My mama know me as a voodoo priest. My brothers and sisters know me as a voodoo priest. My distant cousins and relatives know me as a voodoo priest. Some of you are showing up as readers and practitioners and hoodoo and voodoo, but your job don't know that. Your mom and them don't know that. Your cousin and them don't know that. So revolution shows up in modern times as authentic. Revolution shows up in the modern time in our demonstration. I live this 24 hours a day. I live this while you're celebrating the saints and the Super Bowl and New Year's and the holidays. I'm living voodoo 24 hours a day. Some of you know my light was on. I was doing readings and consultation all day and all night. Christmas, New Year's, and probably would be doing so during the Super Bowl. Revolution shows up in freeing ourselves from entanglements. For revolution shows up in modern times, today, in the freedom of entanglements, in what we eat, in what we drink, and how we live. Some of you are in bondage to the pharmaceutical companies. Some of you are in bondage to the bad food, because if you're taking in bullshit, you can't give nothing but bullshit. If you're feeding yourself on death, you can't give me anything but death. If you are sucking in the cancer, then you can't produce anything but cancer. So revolution in modern times shows up in the true understanding of what liberty, freedom is. First in here, in here, in here, because you speak power to your truth. You create and recreate your reality with your mouth. And some of you think if I keep it closed, or if I mask it behind a false identity online, then those words don't affect me, and they absolutely do. Some of you are thinking wickedness about me right now. You've never typed it. You've never projected it at me. You've never sent it to me in email, but know that it is eating at you like a cancer. Know that the voodoo is already activated. Voodoo don't require no ritual. It don't require me to decide to send your energy back to you. Your energy is already being sent back to you. Your energy is already creating and recreating the reality that you are existing in, that your environment is existing in, your children, your family, your support group, your friends, your co-workers. We are all creators and recreators of our reality each and every day. So your good deeds ultimately come back to you. Always come back to you. Maybe in long life, maybe in prosperity. Maybe you are a little bit more blessed and a little bit more luckier than the next person. But indeed, each and everything that you say, that you think, that you process, especially if you're claiming magic, especially if you're claiming voodoo, especially if you're claiming to be any kind of spiritual practitioner, The very things that you think, that you say, are creating and recreating the reality that you have and those who experience you are having. Uh, Again, I had no idea that I would have this many people present for this show. So I'm truly grateful that each and every one of you are here. As I said earlier in the show, I'm going to slowly give up doing Blog Talk Radio. It's just not the platform that's most useful to us now, moving forward into the future. So I'm going to start doing my Hoodoo, revolutionary Hoodoo, New Orleans Voodoo secrets and recipes here in the YouTube platform each day, each weekday at high noon U.S. Central Standard Time. This was sort of a test, an experiment. I want to see if people would actually show. I want to see if people would actually participate. Thank you for being patient with me because this is new. I've got to figure out a way to maybe make my screen bigger, maybe make your chat a little bit bigger so that I can talk and still see your questions and respond in a more timely way. Goddess 986,000. First of all, your ancestors, how do we heal our ancestors? Your ancestors first are in your DNA. This is not just voodoo. It is scientifically documented recently that ancestral memory is maintained in your DNA. So, for instance, you know, your fear of dogs could be ancestral. Your dislike, in my case, of watermelon, can be something ancestral. It could be your great-great-grandmama, your great-great-granddad. It could be from a trauma or a positive event that exists in a time and a place before you. We all understand to some degree generational curses, alcohol abuse, sexual abuse, violent behavior. I mentioned earlier in the show that I, by way of one of the ancestry products, now have a new first cousin removed, a new second cousin. He was describing his dad. He might as well have been describing my dad. Violent, psychotic, crazy, a womanizer, multiple women, multiple children. His dad was my dad. And so we know that it's a pathology at work in the family. So we go back and we look at our grandfather. Well, my grandfather, yeah, his grandfather. And we don't know a whole lot about him, but we know a consistent message is violence, mean, evil, abusive. And as a voodoo priest, I'm going to be very honest and candid with you all live on air. I have to work on that. I can be vicious. This calm and all is a blessing and divine, all blessed peace and love and joy and prosperity, that took years of work, years of practice, years of la vete, years of rogation, years of doing work in Ori and work in my spirit. My sister Wapani will validate that for you. I am 2 seconds off of being fire and brimstone. Always. It's right beneath the surface. So God is in healing ancestors. We first got to heal ourselves and do that and be willing to acknowledge what we know, what we don't know, what we understand, what we don't understand, and then give that over in the realm of spirit to be healed, to be transmuted. Because all this energy can't be destroyed. Energy is eternal. It cannot be destroyed. even this negative energy that we're talking about. So it has to be recycled. It has to be transmuted. It's sent into a black hole. I describe that as the uh, purpose of black obsidian, to be that black hole, and that energy is passed through that black hole and is remitted on the other side somewhere else in another dimensional time and space as purified white light. And so we've got to feed the ancestors, acknowledge the ancestors, spend time with the ancestors, sit before the ancestors, sit at the feet of the ancestors, and be willing to do that work first for ourselves, and then ultimately for our lineage. When you talk to Lukomi, Santeria practitioners, lineage is critical. One of the first things they want to know, no matter how they mask the question, is about your lineage. Who made your head? Who was in the room when your head was being made? Who initiated you? Who was present when you were initiated? And then who are the heads and the elders who made those people? Lineage is important. And biological lineage, again, certain health issues, certain weight issues, certain mental health issues, certain gifts and skills travel on your ancestral DNA. So we heal the dead. We heal those ancestors first by healing ourselves, and then being willing to do that work so that it transmits, reverberates then out into your family and ultimately to the community. The illusion of isolation is dangerous. The Western concept that is me, myself, and I, that no matter what I do, it doesn't affect you. I can smoke a cigarette and throw that butt down on the ground and be completely disconnected from where it's going. It doesn't break down. It's going to end up in our waters. It's going to end up in our fish. They're talking about saltwater fish being extinct by something like 2060, being extinct because we have this me, myself, and I. It doesn't affect the next person. I'm done with it. I'm going to throw it out, put it out on the sidewalk. I'm done with it. I'm going to toss it in the garbage. Think about all the cell phone batteries. Where are they ending up? Think about that. So what we do now affects both the past and the future, whether we're talking about life or we're talking about ancestors. So we can heal these rifts. We can be the generation to put an end to the generational curse. You can be the individual to put an end to that cancer, that toxin, that glitch, if you will, in the DNA code continuing on beyond you. So we heal the anti for and within ourselves. I hope I answered your question, Goddess 986,000, in a clear and concise way. Get busy. Did you have an elder? I'm trying to scroll up. I don't know if that was like all of your question in a nutshell, but absolutely, I had and still do have elders. No one can operate in these traditions in isolation. No one. So anyone that tells you, I'm hoodoo, I'm voodoo, I'm Santeria, I'm Yoruba, I'm Ifa, I'm a Khan, is going to have elders, it's going to have godparents who not only participated in the initiation, but like your real parents should be present and be a part of your journey. A common story as a practitioner, you know, I mentioned earlier that people will lie their way, con their way in trying to gain access to their story, gain access to the truth in a more honest and organic way. So many will say and will come with these stories about, I was initiated here, but my godparents died. I was initiated there and there was a breakdown. And so now I'm out here and I need your help. But they want me to accept and assume sort of these titles and this information that they come with, not understanding that they don't even have enough knowledge about how these systems work to mask it, to perpetrate it. There's a language in Lakomi, and it's specific to your lineage. So you're not going to say Aboru Aboye or spell it the same way as the next person based on lineage. So there are codes to these systems in how you talk about it, how you represent it, how you ask for help within it. And so I'm often shocked and amazed at the people who operate in these systems, beloved. I'm still responding to, do I have an elder? And then that's one of the first things I ask is, well, what did your godparents say? And then I start getting these stories. Then I start getting the hemming and hawing. The disconnection that shows up in many people's families in social media who are not necessarily that comfortable or close to their parents or their brothers and sisters or their cousins. We see that same thing show up in how people manifest in these systems. And so they'll go from house to house, even legitimately, house to house. They end up on my doorstep or on whoever is showing up in Instagram. And they've got the wording, they pick up certain keywords along the way, certain Yoruba words, often it's in Yoruba. Rarely do I see this perpetrated in other West African dialogue, like Eve, for instance. It's usually Yoruba because Yoruba is the most prolific. You can find the most online material about Orisha, practice. And so that's often the mask that they will put on. But I absolutely have elders, mother and father. I still have living great aunts and uncles. I still have living representatives within the tradition that stand with me, that support me, that are my comfort, that are my go-to when I need understanding. Some of you have experienced that with me where I have asked for 24 hours to connect with my elders about making a decision. I made a decision yesterday with one of you not to work with you by email, and I said that it was under the direction of my elders. That was truthful. That wasn't a game. That wasn't real. That wasn't an illusion. That was real. So yes, you can't do this. You can't be in this. You can't operate in this without elders. And yes, I absolutely do have elders myself. I'm going to soon end the show. I really didn't believe we would be on here an hour. I'm surprised I've even talked an hour. I'm grateful for each and every one of you. I've got a second line going on outside my house. Here in New Orleans, we have second lines. And because of the Saints' excitement, there's brass bands and drums and people in the street out there. And so I'm talking to you while I'm hearing all this who dat Saints activity going on outside, and it has been an hour show, a really great hour show. In the future, we are going to talk a little bit more about some things, teach some things, share some things. I would like audience participation, questions, comments, requests. Please do be patient with me. I am going to have to figure out how to better set up this system so that I can see your chat. I wish I could hear you. I wish I could break this screen up into parts and have, maybe 2 or 3 of you pop in on your web camera with your questions, comments, and create a show in that way. And that might be possible, and this might just be too new to me to know how to do that yet. So I appreciate you all being present, supporting the show. Please do remember that my website, where I can be reached 24 hours a day with your questions, comments, requests, appointments for readings, appointments for tours. Many of you want to come in town and have tours. We do have our own tour company, Our Sacred Stories. So we do offer that you contact us for not just a tour, but an experience. It's one thing to get a tour, some buildings, some locations, some feel-good conversation, but we're going to give you history. We're going to give you real experience. And yes, we do Creole tours, Voodoo tours, haunted tours. We do them all. OurSacredStories.com, Our Sacred Stories. And of course, my website is www.houseofthedivineprince.com. Divine is spelled with 2 I's, DIVINE.com, houseofthedivineprince.com. I'm also extremely popular on my Hoodoo Central business page on Google. So you can also OODOO Central, CENTRALE / please forgive me, that's wrong. It's wow, I don't see my oh, here it is. It's Hoodoo hyphen Central. Hoodoo hyphen, that's the subtraction mark, Central dot business dot site, SITE. Hoodoo hyphen Central dot business dot site. I'm extremely popular there for some reason. I think because of the Google platform and its extensions, Google Images, Google Maps, all of those Google products enter your Google page. And so I'm extremely popular right now there at Hoodoo Central, and I invite you all to join me there. I'll remind you, if you do have any questions, comments, requests, I'm certainly glad to be here for you. Somebody just asked an important question. Give me a second to find it. I'm not going to end the show until I answer your question. Let's see. Get busy. Okay. Can I tell you more about the best way to petition your ancestors? To find what tradition, if there is, in mixed indigenous heritage. Divine self-healing, how to communicate with our ancestors, get direct responses from our ancestors. I'll often get email requests. I had a dream, my ancestors told me this, my ancestors, directed me to do that. My ancestors told me that I should be practicing voodoo, and then I asked them, how was that communicated to them? And of course, it's a feeling, I had a dream, but they don't have the technical skills and details that I would give you in my ancestral divination and ancestral work. I invite you to contact me, emails of this ancestral work. And one more thing that I will say is that it is very specific. We all say we honor and acknowledge our ancestors, but who are we? All say I respect and celebrate my ancestors, but who are they? And so that is part of the equation that's being missed, particularly in this social media stratosphere where everybody is a hoodoo practitioner, where everybody's a voodoo priest. So please, that's of great value. It's one of the things that I hold sacred. People say, how is he succeeding? How is he surviving? How is he doing as well as he's doing in this environment where everybody's a voodoo practitioner? Well, I don't give away my pearls. I don't give away my jewels. Okay. I share, I teach, I want to empower you. I want to help you to get closer to your goal. Um, my lights are at threat of being turned off. So I would appreciate if you would go to my website and investigate having ancestral divination and based on your question, ancestral work. I'll teach you how to do that. I'll gift you not only that information, but there are implements that I will gift you. Some of my godchildren are in this audience. They could speak to the value. They could speak to the worth of what you will gain from committing to that work with me. But there is a way to feed your ancestors, to acknowledge your ancestors, to communicate with them directly and have them respond. Are they accepting your gifts? Are they acknowledging your prayers? There's a way in these traditions to be clear about that. And I would be so happy to gift you. They are really cutting up in Treme in the streets, y'all. If I got any New Orleanians in this audience, second line is rolling. They are cutting up at North Villeray and Dumaine right now. I wish you could hear it. Can I use Google Hangouts? I don't know. I've never used Google Hangouts. I'm going to have to investigate Google Hangouts. It was my understanding that Google Hangouts was coming to an end. Google Plus is also coming to an end. So I see your question, Divine Self-Healing, and I will look into that. But I'm not sure right now how that would work and how to integrate that with this platform. Ghost Queen Oracle, I hear you. I hear you. I have family, friends. I have a godchild whose family is from Hammond. And you may know who I'm talking about, but I'm not going to call their name. They are also an actor, just as I am, and travel a lot back and forth. But I get it. New Orleans can be intense. It's intense. I'm doing a live broadcast right now. I actually got the TV on in the background, and the drums and the brass is coming through the walls. I wish y'all could hear it. And it's one of the reasons that I love New Orleans. It's one of the reasons that I love Treme. I love being woke up at 1 o'clock in the morning by a brass band. I love the idea that you could be minding your voodoo is just passing your house. Because in my mind, beloved, the sister in Hammond, I'm sorry, this thing keeps rolling. Ghost Queen Oracle, in my mind, everything New Orleans is voodoo. Everything New Orleans is voodoo. If you're talking about the food, if you're talking about the architecture, if you're talking about the history, the legends, the stories, it's all got voodoo in it. It's all steeped in voodoo. It's all rooted in voodoo. As I said earlier in the show, because the environment is different here than it was in Cuba, than it was in Brazil, we had to hide. We had to tone it down. We had to keep it under wraps. So the voodoo showed up in other ways, in other places, in other manifestations. So every time a second line, every time I hear a drum and a brass band, it's invoking voodoo. And I often will step out on my stoop, top hat, voodoo stick, horsetail, you know, because they know and I know what's happening. The idea that they even end up here at this crossroads, we know what's happening. It's an acknowledgement of the voodoo, but the voodoo is still legendary and still feared. The idea of New Orleans voodoo is historic. Novels, books, movies going back in history speak to the fear of what New Orleans voodoo is. Skeleton Key, though it's creativity, though it's imagination, though it's fantasy, is steeped in the fear, the organic nature of the fear of New Orleans voodoo. And that's not just because, we bite the heads off chicken. The idea that slaves under the power of voodoo rose up and took Haiti caused great fear in the US. And that birthed the Black Code, that birthed the brown paper bag test, that birthed the Black woman having to wear a T9, a wrap on her head to distinguish her from a white woman. That fear birthed voodoo, the voodoo that we know, the voodoo that we now still possess in the US. It was steeped in that fear of revolution. So I understand. I get it. I'm here to teach, to educate, to re-educate, but I'm not here to dispel people's notion or fear, if you will, of voodoo. The fear, to some degree, maintains a level of respect. Ask around. I don't brag about it. I've never talked about it live on camera before, but I got rumors. I got bodies. People have died crossing the voodoo. People have died crossing me over the voodoo. A Mardi Gras Indian broke into my house 4 or 5 years ago, Mother's Day, knowing that I would be in Congo Square, and violated my altars. Stole barbing cord, stole expensive bottles of rum and liquor, stole weaponry from Ogu, stole weaponry from Black Hawk. And my immediate action was to call the elders. Someone asked the question. I don't know if you were asking me or someone in the group, but somebody asked about elders. Yes, I called the elders here in New Orleans. Some of them you all know, West Bank, East Bank, some of you all know them. And I said, look, this ain't about cursing. This ain't about retribution. This ain't about me getting back because this guy broke into my house and stole my stuff. He violated my shrines, my ancestors. He crossed the Loire. He crossed your. He was dead in 5 days. 5 days. I don't brag about that. The spirit of today is to brag. If you look at Instagram, I should be bragging. I should be telling a story. I should be posting up, money, oil, and all this kind of craziness y'all doing. But that's not what real voodoo is. And real voodoo is about revolution. So the notion of using voodoo to make money, to bind and control people, to do evilness with people, that's witchcraft. That's not voodoo. That's witchcraft. And the two are not the same. The two are not the same. And many who are perpetrating these ancient traditions have no knowledge. Operating in evil, you know that you're operating in ego, and you know that you're operating in something that comes back to the source. So healer, heal her, Iya, Babalawo, Mambo, Hogan, Bokonan, witch, whatever you're calling yourselves today, however you're trying to self-identify today, know that there is a system behind that. There is a protocol behind that. There are rules behind that. The notion that I just want to do me, I don't want to be tied down. I don't want to be committed to anything. I don't want to be represented by any particular organized system. Okay, that's great, but stand in your truth. Understand the meaning of what that is. It doesn't mean I can pick here, pick there. It's a gumbo. I'm going to put it all together. You know, I'm representing voodoo. I'm saying I'm voodoo, but all you've ever seen is a crystal and a candle and a deck of European tarot cards. That ain't voodoo, beloved. That ain't voodoo. So I know I got off track. I tend to do that. Ghost Queen, I get in my feelings. But yeah, I go to the French Quarter every now and then. I do my job as an ambassador for New Orleans, for the city. But the space authentic voodoo operates in, it's not in the French Quarter. It's not in tourism. I get requests all the time. I'm going to be in town tomorrow. Can I see you? No, I'm on TV in both the US and the UK. I'm a documented celebrity reader. My schedule is overwhelming. Mardi Gras Day is coming. Mardi Gras Day is March 4th. I got to sew. A Mardi Gras Indian has to sew. You got to have a Mardi Gras suit, Mardi Gras Indian suit every year. That's a 4-year-old suit right there. But I got to do that every year to make Mardi Gras Day. 12 hours, 16 hours out of the day, I'm doing that. Beading, sewing, sequencing. I'm stopping long enough to do readings, to do work, to fulfill my obligation as a voodoo priest. But I'm not getting wealthy off of this. And indeed, I need your help. I need each and every one of your help, your support. You say you love me. You say you love what I do. Listen, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. But baby, I can't eat on it. One plume, those green feathers, those are called plumes. One plume costs $10 on a Mardi Gras Indian suit. The beads and the sequins are outrageous. Just do a Google search on it. So I need support. I need to be doing readings all day and all night. And I need people to value the service and to understand the value of the service. There's a reason I'm not offering $5 readings. It's a reason. And anyone who's ever had a reading with me would tell you I'm not charging enough for what you get from my readings. My basic 30-minute reading usually goes an hour or more. My complete reading is 90 minutes or more, often with a 10 to 12 page follow-up with homework. So I'm not a fortune teller. I'm not your Jackson Square tourist psychic reader who doesn't care to see you again. Many of the Jackson Square readers are homeless themselves, are not in the best living scenarios themselves. And they're there, just like any tourist area, to make the quick buck. They're not there to give you any kind of voodoo because they don't have that, number one. Number two, I wouldn't even put them on the level as gypsies, real legitimized gypsies whose whole life is about doing fortune telling and spirit work. I'm running a complete whole voodoo temple, a Mardi Gras Indian gallery, and then the space to do the work every day. So I need you all support. I need you all to contact me for readings. I need you all to use my 800 numbers. I need you all to be, and I need you all to say vocally that you appreciate what's happening. When I don't get that, I feel like I'm just talking to hear myself talk, and that's not why I do this. Many people are doing selfies and are doing videos, and they just want to hear themselves talk. I'm really here to exchange voodoo, but also to create a community both locally and internationally, where you all can feel safe that there are elders, that there are leaders, that there are teachers, that there are people who are seriously committed to this as a vocation. Y'all fearful of the word religion. Voodoo is a religion. It's a lifestyle. It's a vocation. It's a way of being. Fortune teller is not a religion. Fortune teller is not a lifestyle. Fortune teller can often be a look. And in Instagram, for instance, Instagram is about the look. Instagram is created for pictures, videos under 1 minute. So the idea that somehow it's a source for seeking out people who are truly committed to this is just an illusion. But it's just an illusion. I know I said I was going to end this show 30 minutes ago. I had no idea that it would be this popular, that people would even care, even participate. So I appreciate each and every one of you for being present here for Hoodoo, Revolutionary Hoodoo, New Orleans Voodoo Secrets and Recipes. I don't worry about the devil. I don't worry about the devil. Y'all can handle the devil. All is a blessing. Ashe.